Your previous life experiences, especially traumatic life experiences, are influencing your trading negatively. And if you don't have the self-awareness of these specific events in your life, and you don't actively do work to address these particular events in your life, they are going to influence your trading decisions. And from what I've seen working with hundreds of clients on these specific issues, if you don't address these traumatic life experiences, they're going to stop you from having consistent profitability. Because when you trade, whether you know it or not, these experiences are going to influence your decision making, and they're going to influence your ability to have consistent profitability. What I want to do in this video is I want to give you a complete overview of how your previous life experiences, how your traumatic life experiences, how they affect your brain, and how they in turn affect your decision making, as well as show you that in the context of trading, where these events influence your trading decisions and how you can manage that. And then I'm also going to give you some actionable things that you can actually implement to start working at these life experiences so that you're not a victim of these previous experiences, but you can start to redefine them, start to reshape them, and you're not as influenced by them with your future trading decisions, helping you lower your stress and emotional volatilities as a trader, helping you break through to consistent profitability and scale with funding. Okay, now I'm not sure how long this lecture is going to go, but I'm gonna go deep with this one. I'm gonna give you a lot of insights that are gonna be very, very useful in your journey. So let's get into it. Now, the first thing I wanna break down here is a little bit of a timeline in your life, and depending on where you currently are in your life, you've got different stages to your life. And at different stages of your life, you obviously have different levels of awareness. Your brain's at a different stage of development. And at each and every single one of these stages in your life, you can have experiences that you take in and you perceive. And some of these experiences you may perceive as traumatic. And some of these experiences you may perceive as the exact opposite, very elating and very exciting and very happy. And the truth is, both the traumatic negative experiences and also the very exciting and elating experiences, both are going to influence your ability to become a consistently profitable trader. And a lot of traders just think it's the negative, challenging events that need to be addressed throughout their life. But in fact, it's both the negative and positive. I'm going to explain why this is the case throughout this lecture. Okay? And throughout each of these experiences, you can have traumatic or elating life experiences. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zero in on one of these experiences or one of these times in your life. And this may be from ages 0 to 5. The next one may be from 5 to 10. The next one may be 10 to 15 years old, 15 to 21, 21 to 30, whatever it is. And depending where you are in your stage of life, you'll have different experiences. And this tends to be quite important because, as a late teenager to early adult, 15 to 21, you're going to be faced with different types of things. You're going to have experiences in your social group, maybe your first breakup, maybe your first, party or first experience with a very violent, aggressive event, whatever it may be. Through 21 to 30, it may be a traumatic experience through, a breakup or a marriage or a divorce or a traumatic experience at work where you get let go. In early life, it may be something that is with parents or with that type of stuff within your family that you may have traumatic experiences. Okay, so I'm going to just zero in on one of these. Which one, it doesn't really matter, but throughout each of these stages, let's zoom in a little bit more on it. And we can take this individual, and this individual, no matter what stage of life you're at. And by the way, what you can do if you really want to make this an action-based lecture and really get the most out of it is you can go back through each of the stages and you can review in your life and have a look, all right, between 0 to 5, what were the events that were very traumatic and negative in my perception, very depressing, and which ones are very elating, and identify the events, because a big part of what we're going to talk about today is self-awareness. And firstly, having an awareness of what events are being triggered when you're trading. And you can go back through the different stages in your life. You can identify these events, both positive and negative. And again, I'm going to explain why it's important to address both, not just the negative traumatic events, but also the opposite. Okay, and you can go back and you can identify the specific events through these stages just to help identify the specific events a little bit easier. Okay, but in each of these stages, what's going to happen is you're going to have an event, and we've touched on this in other lectures, but there's a difference between actuality, what's out there, and the events, and also our personal reality. And a big part of understanding the human psychology is learning to differentiate between the two, recognizing that our reality is a filter of actuality, and we have what we call our perception, which we can use as an analogy of a filter. And our perception takes in actuality, and then depending on our priorities, our value systems in that moment, depending on the associations in our brain, depending on whether we perceive that event as supporting or challenging in that point in time, we then filter that event through our bias, our confirmation, disconfirmation bias, and then we log that event in our personal reality, in our mind, as our reality. And the truth is, every individual has a different priority system. Every individual has a different idea or belief system of what they label good and bad. Every individual has a different set of goals. Every individual has a different physical makeup of their brain. So no two individuals are going to perceive an event in actuality and then it be the exact same event in their own reality. So every individual has a different perception of actuality and therefore a different reality. Okay? So it's very important for us to understand, a huge part of psychology and understanding your brain is understanding this component here, the perception and the filter. So I want to again zero in a little bit more on that, because that's going to be a big part of today's lecture. Now, I use the eyeball to denote the perception, but the truth is it's not just your eyes that perceive, it's all of your senses. You can smell something and have a perception. You can hear something. You can hear someone in a different room having an argument, an aggressive or violent argument in your perception, and you can log that. You don't even have to see it necessarily. Or you could touch something, or you could feel something, and it's the feeling that's the perception. It's the tactile. And we have a lot that go beyond just our five senses. The human brain and the human body is far more vast than that. And we have different types of senses, but I'm going to use the eye to denote perception, but I want to make it clear that it's not just your eye that has perception. Okay? So let me try and draw an eyeball here. And this eye, for this example, we're going to attach it to the brain and this is not scientifically or to scale by any means, but just to frame an analogy, we'll attach that to the brain. Okay, and the eyeball is here, and that eyeball is your eyeball, and it's your perception, and this is really the gateway between actuality and reality. Actuality is out here, what actually happens, actuality, and reality is your personal interpretation or your reality of that. Okay, so you can have an event in actuality that happens, and it comes through your perception, and then based in that moment, based in that point in time, you make a judgment of that particular event, and if it supports your values or your priorities in that moment, then what happens is you label that event as good, and you log that event in your subconscious mind as a positive and pleasurable and good event. And let's say, for example, maybe you're maybe you're 18 or 19 or whatever, and you're starting dating, and you have you see someone that's a very attractive individual in your eyes, and you have a very positive reaction in that moment, and a lot of dopamine's released, and you feel very good, and maybe that individual has a certain hair color, and in your mind you have a certain association between that hair color and dopamine, or maybe they have a certain hair color and eye color, and you log that as a very positive experience, a very positive association. So in your mind, you're going to have that hair color and that set of eyes is logged as a very pleasurable event. So now maybe let's say 10 years later, you're going through life and you're no longer with that person, and you're filtering out your environment, you're going to have in your mind, whether you know it or not, a certain attraction towards that eye color or that hair color, whether you're aware of it or not, because of that previously logged subconscious experience. Now, I'm gonna label this whole brain here, just for the example's sake, as the subconscious mind. You may not even be aware of these associations and how they impact your decisions and choices in the future, but they're there for a very particular reason. Okay? So we can have that association logged in our mind, and what then happens is we then filter, right, throughout life, and we make decisions and actions based on what we perceive will give us the greater advantage over disadvantage to that particular association, just as an example's sake. Now, so too, you can in your life have what you may perceive as a very traumatic or negative or painful experience. And that experience is going to be logged again in your subconscious mind, and there's going to be a certain association to that perception, to that experience that you're going to log in your mind. Okay? And whatever in your mind is associated to that traumatic experience, let's say, for example, you're in a car accident, for example, and maybe in your mind you associate car or a certain location or a certain junction, maybe a T intersection, and in your mind you associate that to the traumatic experience, to the pain of that car accident. Then when you're going through your life and you see a T intersection, or you see a certain color car or a certain type of car, or the individual who was driving the other car was wearing glasses, or they had a mustache, or they had a certain hair color, you can in your mind make these certain associations to that negative. I want to avoid it because it had a lot of pain and a lot of trauma associated to it in the past. And again, you go throughout life filtering, making decisions based on that, whether you're aware of it or not. It's logged in the subconscious mind. So what I'm trying to, just to summarize this, you have a perception of actuality, and then your reality gets created based on those associations. And really, your brain has trillions of associations, and those associations then dictate the type of decisions and actions you make. You tend to make decisions towards things that have those pleasurable associations in your life, and you tend to make decisions and actions away from those experiences that you have as logged as negative. Okay? This is a very important concept to understand, because a huge part of your trading decisions and actions are really influenced by a lot of these associations. In fact, all your decisions and actions are, but a lot of traders don't understand this. So the way your brain stores trauma and also very positive and elating experiences is through this association pathway. And again, you may not be aware of these associations, and you may not be aware of these positive and negative associations, but they're going to be impacting your decisions and actions in the future and your perceptions in the future, whether you're aware of it or not. And this is where, when we talk about awareness and the importance of awareness in your life, the awareness is those individuals who are able to make the subconscious information conscious in that moment and understand, okay, in this moment I have an attraction towards this certain individual because of these certain features, because of these, a previous positive dating experience, for example. Or I have a very strong avoidance and distaste for this certain car or this certain location or this certain individual because of that very traumatic experience in the past. Okay? And those individuals who have awareness is really the first step, is understanding why and where that attraction or repulsion is coming from. But the way your brain stores trauma is through this certain association. It's a perception that gets logged in the subconscious mind, and you associate negative pain, challenge to it. And you have biochemical responses as a result as well. So for example, if you're walking down the street and you see someone who matches your search image based on your previous positive dating experiences, and they have the same, maybe blonde hair, blue eyes, whatever it is, your brain, when you have that perception, is going to have a biochemical response. So your brain is literally going to release the feel-good chemicals, dopamine, oxytocin, and those chemicals that make you feel good in that moment, and therefore the attraction in that moment. And so too, your brain will do the exact opposite. If it has the association between the negative traumatic experience, your brain's going to release the pain substances, the dopamine's going to drop, the oxytocin's going to drop, and that's what's creating that avoidance, the feeling of, oh, I don't feel good in this type of situation. Okay? So this is how your brain stores trauma and also positive events. And I also want to give you an understanding that your future perceptions, decisions, and actions are now formed and are influenced and are tainted by these associations. And there's just not one or two, there's trillions. There's so many of them. And even in that split second moment of perceiving a traumatic experience, there could be hundreds, if not more, micro associations built around that. Okay? And with that positive experience, there may be hundreds of experiences built around that. Okay? So the first step really in understanding your trading psychology and addressing how trauma affects your trading success is really firstly having self-awareness of where a certain reaction is coming from. Okay? But your perceptions, decisions, and actions are influenced by these previous associations. That's the first understanding. Okay? This is an overview of your brain. This is really part one. And then I want to get into the specifics for trading in part two. So let's say, for example, you have now gone through life and you've lived a little bit and you've had trillions and trillions of perceptions, right? Trillions and trillions of these perceptions of good and bad, what you label good and bad, and evil and good, whatever it is, okay? And you've got all these associations logged. And you don't even have to be that old, really. Every individual has trillions of experiences logged in their subconscious mind of what is good and what is bad. And maybe let's make a few of these up. Maybe for a hypothetical sense and a hypothetical example, maybe you had a very traumatic experience. Let's say you've lost a lot of money in crypto. Worked with a client, lost a lot of money in crypto, and they labeled that as a very traumatic and painful experience, and that's logged in their subconscious mind. Maybe there was a bad divorce. Maybe that had a financial component to it as well. However, there was a lot of pain and agony around the breakup of that relationship, and that was a very traumatic experience, just for example's sake. Maybe there was something around your physical body, and you've had something where you've had to have a limb or an organ removed, or you had a unexpected illness pop up, and that was a very traumatic experience for you. So there could be many different factors here logged as traumatic experiences. And let's say, for example, you had also very elating experiences. Maybe you had an experience where you were gambling at the casino and you made a lot of money off a roulette. You got lucky and you made a lot of money on that, or a lottery, or whatever it may be. Or you landed a new job, or you married your dream partner, and there's a lot of positive associations there. Okay, and let's also add another one so I can use for the example. Maybe I've used the example before. You're playing a sport when you're a bit younger, and you took a loss in that sport, and one of your parents criticized you, or some of the other parents criticized you, and you got a very painful criticism there logged towards losing, and it's this negative slant, negative association. Or maybe you did very, very well in school or in sporting at a very early age, and you have this log where your parents showed you an enormous amount of support and love in that moment, and you have that very positive experience logged of winning in sport when you're younger, whatever it may be. Okay. But these are all associations that are logged in the brain. And by the way, this thing behind it is your brain. Now, how do these experiences, and everybody has these experiences logged. I showed you how they get logged. But now let's say and then you're going through life, you want to start trading. How do these experiences now impact your trading decisions? Well, there's a few things I want to cover here. The first thing I want to cover is how these experiences affect your trading, your current trading decisions. Let's say you're at the market and you have this brain that has all these experiences logged in the subconscious mind. You may not even be aware of them consciously. And you're looking at the market now and you're wanting to make a trading decision when you're at your computer screen. Okay? And what's happening in your mind is you look at the subconscious mind. You already have all these positive associations to winning that you've left unaddressed, and you have all these painful experiences around losing that you want to avoid. So in your mind, what's logged and what's associated and where the pathways are associated is that winning is good, I want to seek after it, and losing is bad, terrible, very painful, I want to avoid it. Okay? And what's going to happen in your mind is you're going to be looking at a price chart and you're going to be making a decision based on what you think the outcome of that trade is going to be. And you're trying to predict the next move and you're focused in on that individual trade. You want to make money and you're forcing an idea onto the market on that individual trade, and you're imposing your desire and your will to make money because of your previous experiences. You're imposing that will onto the market. So what's going to happen in that moment is you're not going to stick to your trading plan, and you're going to be imposing your ideas, your fantasies, your outcome-based expectations onto the market. And in that moment, what happens is, because you have this association to winning and you have this strong bias to winning, you're now going to bring in confirmation bias to only let in and find evidence in that moment in the markets to support your desire to win. And you're going to have disconfirmation bias that blocks out anything that runs counter to that belief. So in that moment, if you don't address a lot of these associations in your brain, your trading decisions are going to be heavily influenced. You're going to be making decisions based on these previous experiences. You're run by your subconscious mind. You're not run by your present trading plan, by proven processes. But you're imposing your will onto the market and your impact onto the market. It's very important to understand. This is why I created the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool. And you hear me speak about it a lot in my YouTube videos because it's such an important component of trading. You have to learn to differentiate between the outcome versus the process. The process is your trading plan. It's your proven edge. It's what you've laid out in your trading plan based on back-tested data, based on what you know the edge that you know the market's going to provide you in terms of an edge. So if you're making trading decisions, which a lot of traders do subconsciously, they don't even realize, based on the desire to win because of that, maybe that really big win in the casino, or that win in crypto, or even the win in your marriage, or maybe out of the desire. I've worked with traders, and when we dig deep, really what it is just a desire to get love and attention and support from their parents, which they perceive they haven't had for a long time. So it could come in many different forms, but understanding that you need to differentiate in that moment. Am I making a decision based on what I hope the outcome is going to be because of the subconsciously stored baggage in my mind, or am I making a decision out of process, the trading plan? And the outcome can be both. It could be the desire to avoid the pain of that previous crypto loss, or the divorce, or the criticism, whatever it may be, the desire to avoid that, or the desire to seek after that positive win. Both of those are part of the outcome. So as a trader, you have to understand, am I making a decision based on the outcome, based on the subconsciously stored associations of the positive experiences and the trauma logged in my mind? And you have to understand that before you make a trading decision. Because really, as a trader, it's not about the outcome of the individual trade. It's not about being right on that individual trade. It's not about seeking after that pleasurable dopamine, that adrenaline rush you get from winning. But rather what it's about predefining an edge, putting that into a mechanical trading plan, and then sticking to that over a large sample space. Because you may not be right on that one individual trade, but if you stick to it long enough, you'll end up profitable over a larger sample space. You'll win more than what you lose if you stick to your edge and you have a proven edge. So the first thing I want you to take away from this video in terms of an actionable insight is that you have to learn to understand what type of decision am I making before this trade. Am I making a process based, or rather, am I making an outcome-based trade based on what I think is going to happen, based on what I desire from the market because of my previous stuff? Or have I grounded that, and am I making a process-based decision based on a proven trading plan and edge? The only thing that will lead to consistent profitability is this. If you get caught up in outcome-based thinking, you're never going to have consistent profitability, because you're constantly going to be seeking after winning all the time, which is not attainable, and trying to avoid losing all the time, which is not attainable, and you'll end up chasing your own tail, and you get stuck in the boom and bust cycle. So as a trader, what you have to do is you have to learn to become aware of your expectations before you trade, and understand what type of decision am I making. And if you're caught in outcome-based thinking, you have to ground that expectation, and you have to remind yourself to get back to your trading plan. And what I've done to make it very easy for you and give you a step-by-step process to follow is I've created the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool to help you follow through with that. It's a completely free tool. It's the first link in the description. Download that and use that process, because it's going to help you ground outcome-based thinking and get back to your trading plan. It's going to help you make better trading decisions and not be as influenced by your previous traumatic experience and previous elating experiences. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Now, the next way these previous associations in your subconscious mind affect your trading, and these are just the two most common ones. They could affect it in many, many different ways. But the second way is after winning and losing. And you may have experienced some very painful losses in your trading career. And when you think about it, really, maybe you've risked $1,000 in that trade. You ask yourself the question, why did I react so painfully and so negatively in that moment? Or I've only lost 1% of my account in that moment. Why me losing that amount of money on this individual trade did not really justify such a painful reaction in that moment. And the reason why you had such a painful experience in that moment isn't only because of the monetary loss in that moment, but rather what's happening is it's another association. And in your mind, you have a loss, which not only brings up that present loss of the capital in that moment, the percentage, but rather what it brings up is all the subconsciously stored associations of losing. All these other things are being resurfaced. The divorce, maybe there was a perception of losing some things with the illness. Maybe there was a perception of strong loss with the crypto, or the loss earlier in life we had the criticism. And what's happening is you're not only losing what you perceive to have put on the table for that individual trade, but you're also, the subconscious mind is resurfacing all those things through associations, and now you're reliving the pain of those things again as well. So if you don't address the subconscious mind, the subconsciously stored associations and baggage, then you're not only going to influence your trading decisions, but you're going to have very painful losses, because it's going to resurface a lot of that other stuff. And also, you're also going to have very pleasurable wins, which is going to put you into this state of pride and feeling invincible, and it's going to take you away from your trading plan. So you have to address both the very positive and the very painful associations of the subconscious mind in order to get back to your trading plan to build consistent profitability, to go back to your processes. Okay? Now, each of these associations, just because they're set, doesn't mean they're set for life. And the brain is incredibly neuroplastic. And even after the age of 25, your brain is still neuroplastic. So you have to understand also, and this is going to come into part 3 of the lecture, through neuroplasticity and what is referred to as the Hebbian law or Hebbian principle, which states that associations that fire together wire together. So the more you run a certain story and a certain association and revisit that in your mind, the more it's going to more strongly myelinate together and run that pathway again. However, through neuroplasticity and Hebbian law, you can start to rewire your brain. You can start to literally rewire the associations if you have the self-awareness and you have the tools to be able to go in there and rewire that. And I teach these tools in the 12-week program. But what I want to give you in this YouTube video, firstly, is you have to have an awareness of where and why your reaction's coming. And let's say, for example, you have a very painful loss in the market. You go back to that specific moment, you get very present in that moment, and you ask yourself the question, why am I reacting this way? and you dig deep and you hold yourself accountable and you listen to that very quiet voice in the back of your head, it's going to resurface in your mind. It's going to flash in your mind what it was truly bringing up for you and understanding where that reaction comes from. So as a trader, it's very important to have an awareness of what subconsciously stored event is coming up and resurfacing when you have a very painful loss, or when you have a very pleasurable win. Again, what is resurfacing? Because these things need to be addressed, and these things need to be rewired. Really, you need to go in there and through rewiring, what you're doing is you're expanding your awareness for those particular events. You're asking yourself good questions to see them in different light and get a different perspective, a broader perspective on those events. And when you do, they don't have as much of an impact emotionally on you. They broaden your perspective. And that's a very important exercise to do as a trader if you want consistent profitability, if you want to stick to your trading plan. Because if you don't do that, what's going to happen is you're going to be run by fear and greed, and you're going to be run by your emotions and your previously stored associations, as opposed to making a decision in that moment based on what your trading plan states. So really the first step in understanding this is having an awareness of where those associations come from, where those reactions come from. Okay? So this is a little overview of trauma and elation and how it gets stored in your subconscious mind and how it impacts your trading decisions. And really, any resentment of the past or a traumatic experience of the past logged in your subconscious mind is going to lead to a future fear. And any very pleasurable experience of the past, this here's the past, positive, negative, negative, positive, any positive elating events that are stored in your subconscious mind here are then going to create greed in the future. So in order to manage fear and greed in the future as a trader, you have to go in there and address the subconsciously stored positive and negative associations through this, what I teach in the 12-week program. And by going in and doing that, that allows you to just get back present with the market. Ask the market in the moment, what are you doing? What are you showing me? What's your next move, so that I can make the most rational and objective decision based on my trading plan in that moment. And that's where you stick to your trading plan. That's where you finally build consistent profitability. Okay? So hopefully this was insightful. Hopefully you learned something new. And this is how your brain stores trauma and elating events, and how that in turn affects your trading decisions. Okay? If you found this useful, please like, comment, and subscribe. Check out the resources in the description, that Bulletproof Your Mindset tool. Check out the 12-week program. Those are two very, very useful resources that are going to help you upgrade your trading psychology so that you can lower your emotional volatilities, you can break through to consistent profitability, you can scale with funding, you can go and live the life you want to live as a trader. And understanding this topic is very, very important. Okay? If you found this useful, please also share it with your trading communities and trading friends. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.